All right, let's run this cold. Ooh, ooh, that was fugly. 2.11, I'm still over. I made the hits. I made the time. Wow, that's haven't done that in several years actually. That's hard. Okay, if you're wondering what you're seeing, 6-inch circle, which is 2 seconds flat, 4 shots fired. Got to keep them inside of this area right here. So I actually managed to get it done this time. Hey guys, welcome out to the range. All right, let's have the brutal conversation about trigger finger placement. What you just saw, for me to be able to get those hits in a very compressed period of time, 2 seconds, four shots, 7 yards, 6-inch circle. This is actually done when you do handgun combatives. It is on a 6x10, which is central thoracic cavity. No slight against Dave. For myself, I run a very tight 6-inch circle on the head. Now, with all honesty, here's what I will allow you as a student. Just above the bolts on the target, all the way to the very top of the frontal, the forehead, and all the way to either side, but you have to stay just inside of the ears. So if you crease the line on this thing right here, so if you crease the line like this hit right here is creasing that line, that's a keeper. That one would technically be out. Basically, it's on the perimeter of the face, and sternocleidomastoid are the two muscles here that help our heads turn. So I would consider this acceptable, but above the bolts and below that black line right there of the frontal, because that's roughly 10 inches and that's roughly 6 inches. So the target is 6x10. For me, I try to keep them inside of 6 inches. But anyways, this has to be accomplished from 7 yards, which is where the spray paint can is, in 2 seconds, 4 hits. What am I leading to with all of this? Trigger finger placement. You hear a lot of fluff about trigger finger placement. Well, this right here is a nightmare fight. I just had to hit this guy 4 times in 2 seconds. Luckily, I was at the ready position, so I'm already ahead of the curve, which automatically denotes that this is a confrontation that has gone from way over there to all of a sudden all the way over here, hoping that there's something between us, obviously. But I am now at the ready position. So I have gone from this, actually it's more like this, to now I'm here. Now I'm absolutely showing intent. And let's face it, I've just brandished a weapon. I'm now showing intent to this person. And now, whatever the scenario is in your head, the moment occurs and I have to fire. The trigger finger placement that so many people spend so much energy squawking about is, with all honesty, irrelevant. And I know that I just slew the sacred cow. Now, I will say this. If you're doing this, you got a problem. But this is what you guys see me doing. Now, why is that? Because my hands are gigantic. This is a Glock 17, not a Glock 19. This is a Glock 17. I've got really, really big hands. So I have difficulty shooting. This to me is a small gun. A Glock 20 and Glock 21, the Glockzillas, those are my favorite guns because those fit my hands. I've had to train myself to deal with the small size of the Glock 17, but I'm cool with that because I've learned to shoot this gun really well. What this boils down to is the trigger finger placement. What I tell people is, as long as you're aware of where the front third of your trigger finger is, that's all that really matters. 1, 2, 3. There are 3 sections to the trigger finger. As long as you're aware of where that front third is, then you're pretty much good. And what I mean by that is, as long as you're not exceeding that first crease, you're pretty much good. People will tell you that they want you here. See this gap right here? This is what they want to see. No, because this right here is a press. Oh, it's beautiful. Oh, the trigger press. Let's do that again for the camera. Oh, nice central hit on the chest. Trigger press. Ooh, that's stacked on the other one. Oh, all kinds of happy. Well, here's the reality. Many years ago, I was at SHOT Show, and I was having dinner with a friend of mine, and people who don't know me in learning mode are usually shocked when I'm 100% quiet. Whenever I have people in front of me who have been in combat, oh, trust me, I so want that knowledge. And this was a tabletop interview that was going on, and it was during dinner. So I was kind of like seated just off to the side, and my friend and his buddy were having a tabletop interview. And I was just sitting there, just, you know, enjoying my dinner and listening quietly. And he was asking this guy several questions, and the guy told a story about when they were in Iraq. And he said that they left the base and, you know, a little hole in the wall restaurant somewhere, and they left the base to go check out this little place and get some dinner. And he said that he looked across the street, and he said, and the verbiage that he used was, the guy stepped off the curb and opened up on us with an AK-47 that he'd produced from somewhere. He had no idea where the gun had come from. He said he and 3 other guys were walking on this side, and they glanced over because this dude was eyeballing them. And then they glanced again, and all of a sudden there's an AK in the guy's hands, and they have no idea where it came from. And he said that basically the group of guys that he was with just kind of spread out, and everybody drew, and everybody opened fire. And he said, and the question was asked, and it was answered this way. Well, the question was, what was your trigger work? I can't remember the actual verbiage, but it was something to the effect of trigger work. And the guy said, make no mistake, there was no pressing, there was no pushing. He says, we were yanking on the triggers as fast and as hard as we could, drowning in the CO2 imbalance in our blood gases. And I remember going, well, now there's a slice of truth that most people just don't want to hear. So I never forgot that moment in time. I say this, in fact, I was just out here a few days ago with some friends teaching, and I said to them, there is no pressing. It is yanking, cranking. You're trying to work that trigger as fast and as hard and as fiercely as you can, and you're hoping to God that you can keep your eyes somewhere roughly on your front sight post. Like right now, I can kind of sort of see my front sight post, and I can kind of sort of see my target, and let's do a headshot. And I went right between his eyes. But if this dude were shooting back at me, that'd be an entirely different story. And so I say to you, as long as the front third of your trigger finger is somewhere on that trigger, as long as you haven't exceeded that line right there and are doing this, then you're sitting pretty. Don't even worry about it. You can get away with this kind of foolishness with a rifle. You guys have heard me say this before. A rifle will tolerate a lot of stupidity from you before it'll burn you. But a handgun will tolerate very little bits of stupidity from you before it will burn you, before it will make you miss a shot. The slightest flick, the slightest movement, and you throw a shot. So you have to pay very close attention to what you're doing with handguns. And people spend a lot of time worrying about all the mechanics of standing and this and that and hand placement. Hand placement is kind of important. Hand placement is support hand forward, which is why I have that notch that I've dremeled into my frame right there. And it allows me to fight the front end of the gun and keep it flat. That's the beauty of that right there. It acts like a light. Because you know you can shelf on a light. I've got big hands. I can get away with shelving on a light if I wanted to, but I don't run a pistol light. This right here allows me to have something to shelf on and keep that thing under control, keep that front end from coming up, and keep me from doing, watch right here, keep me from doing this. Because that's what happens when you have nothing to hang on to. Every time you pull the trigger, your gun goes boop, like that, out of your grasp, and you have to reset. Which is why you'll see people that are either inexperienced or they haven't set their gun up properly. Every time they pull the trigger, I think I may have some video on this.
Contact!
Contact front!
Moving!
Move!
Stop!
Moving! Clear right! Every time they pull the trigger, the gun goes bop, 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 and they gotta muscle it back down again. So, yeah, trigger finger placement is not as big a deal as you think it is. The keyboard commandos spend a lot of time talking about this, and they don't spend a lot of time training on this. And when you come out and actually run drills, which is what we do out here, then you realize that there are very basic things that you have to remember. I'll close with this. If there are 10 things that you must remember in a gunfight, as long as you have practiced 9 of them, and you have all 9 memorized, rote memory, the only thing you have to remember is number 10. Do I or do I not pull the trigger? That's it. If everything else has been committed to memory, running, stopping, stabilizing, deciding to take the shot, not deciding to take the shot, moving to get a better vantage point, a better angle. If all the body mechanics of running the gun have already been committed to memory, the only thing you're having to remember is pulling the trigger. And wouldn't it be nice to remember that it doesn't come down to that perfect pad placement that everyone says that your trigger finger must be right here and should not exceed this position. Guys, this is dogma. Okay, this isn't even doctrine. This is dogma at this point. This has been dogmatically taught to me time and time again. And I'm the guy that would come back to my range and I would spend weeks on end after classes taking all the things that I picked up in the class and running them and learning off of them and going, that works, that doesn't work, that's crap. Let's throw that away. Let's take this piece and distill this and sew this in to that garment of knowledge that I make sure that I put on every time that I get my gun and head out the door. And over the years, there's a great deal of knowledge that I have allowed myself to accidentally forget. And when I come out here with students and I dust off that little piece of information and I go, oh man, yeah. Here's that moment in time. And I tell the story and it drives the point home. So I hope that these videos that I'm doing for you guys that are just off the cuff are helping you, because there are, at last estimate, 10 million new gun owners that have entered the market, and there's a severe lack of knowledge out here on the interwebs. There's so much crap being taught to people that it's just embarrassing. But I'll stop there. As always, I thank you guys for watching. God bless you all. Get those guns out and practice. Have a good one. Get it! Whoa, rubber knees.